Hi, this is Dave Kahle. Welcome to our Practical Wisdom series of podcasts where we try to provide wisdom and resources and focus on helping sales professionals and business executives sell better, lead better, and live better. Hi, this is Dave, and today I'm talking about navigating through difficult times, part 2, refining a sales force or leading a sales force. So we understand, that we're in the middle of some very difficult and unprecedented times, and rather than beat that to death, I'd just like to come to the heart of the problem, and that's this. We're all wondering, what do we do? And this particular podcast is focused on chief sales officers and CEOs and sales leaders of all kinds. And specifically, the question that I'm going to respond to is, what do we do about sales force? How do we shepherd and manage a sales force? How do we refine a sales force and take advantage of this opportunity that the difficult times present to us? So in an earlier podcast, I talked about how individuals ought to respond to the question, what do we do? And in this podcast, again, we're talking to sales leaders. How should you manage a sales force through this time? Now, once again, before I offer some recommendations, let me just take a mile-high view, and that's this. We have been here before, and when I say here, I mean we have been in national crises, economic downturns, where the whole nation was upset and anxious and fearful. We've been there before. And as a nation and as individuals in every level of society in between, this level of confusion and anxiety that we're feeling right now is not new. Now, of course, it may be new to you, and depending on your age, this may be your first encounter with life that has not gone according to your plan, but it certainly is not unique for many of us. I have lived through the oil embargo in the 70s. Some of you don't even know that existed. I lived through Jimmy Carter's Malayan inflation in the teens when the prime rate hit 18%. I've lived through the 9/11 attacks and the resulting tailspin in the economy. I lived through the dot-com crisis, lived through the 2008 real estate crisis. I've seen my business so devastated they had to tell my staff that I could no longer make payroll. So I've been there, been through all that. But I don't just draw from my own experience in my own business. As a sales consultant, I have personally and contractually worked with over 500 different companies, and their sizes ranged from under $1 million in annual sales to over $8 billion in annual sales. So a wide variety of size, type of businesses, and so on. The thing they had in common, they were all B2B sellers of some kind. So over the years and through all of these times of economic uncertainty and depression and recession and so on, I have been working with B2B sellers of all kinds and all sizes. So in all of this, in all of my personal experience with my own business, plus as a consultant and a sales consultant for hundreds and hundreds of companies, in all this I've learned some lessons, and I've gained some wisdom that may be helpful to you. And I'd like to think of it in two ways. Number one, shoring up things for immediate survival. That's the first thing I'm going to address. And secondly, and this is really more important, gearing up for the inevitable opportunity to come. So let's talk about first shoring up things for immediate survival. Now, it may be that you don't need to worry because of the happy coincidence of being in the right place at the right time. One of my clients sells meat to grocery stores, for example, and the demand has spiked as people are not going to restaurants and are cooking at home. So he's had to put his customers on allocation. All right, good for him, but I suspect most of you are likely to be dealing with customers who won't or can't see your salespeople. That's number one. Customers who may be teetering on the edge of insolvency. That's number two. And dealing with a pervasive client of uncertainty and anxiety, and that's number three. So I have three recommendations for right now, things to do to shore up for immediate survival. Number one, bring the troops inside.
Okay, now your salespeople are probably frustrated with their inability to see their customers. Now is the time to direct them and then enable them to work inside, probably from their home, on the phone or on video. So this is a major change for a lot of salespeople who are used to getting in the car and going. Now, that's limited, if at all effective. You can't just get in the car and go. You have to go down the basement, get on the phone, or get on your laptop, or get on your computer and go. So bring the troops inside, and you'll need you need to lead that effort. So you'll need to invest a little bit in equipment and software, and you'll need to provide them some minimal training. And once they become acclimated, they ought to be productive and much more positive. They and you will gain a competency, you gain some new skills that will separate you from the competition and will pay off long term as well as short term. Some of those customers who are now not seeing your salespeople will decide on the other side of this that they like that and will want to continue in that format. So this is not just a temporary thing for you. You need to create some competencies inside your organization. And you need to direct that effort to lead them. A little bit of equipment. You may have to buy some phone, some headsets or things like that. You don't want people talking on cell phones, and you may need to provide Zoom or any one of the countless other video software or video communication programs that there are in this world today. As far as training goes, we have a 1 hour video that you may want to look at. It's called how to sell to customers when you can't visit them, using technology to sell better remotely. We'll put a link on the show notes for this video. So number 1, bring the troops inside. Number 2, install some management routines. That's number 2. So now, if you have not yet already, now is the time to install. That means, put it into practice. A weekly one-on-one conference between your salespeople and your sales management. So every week, right now, starting this week, a one-on-one conference, half-hour, 45-minute conference between a salesperson and sales manager. Now that's in addition to any group sales meetings that you may have. The conference should focus around, there should be an agenda. The agenda is, let's review your last week's plan and talk about the progress that you made, and let's review next week's plan. So we're looking at progress and plans. That's it, We're not talking about, this guy and pricing here and that. We're talking about what this salesperson is going to do next week and what he or she has done last week. Now, your salespeople are doing something new, if they're inside, this is new to them. And they will need some high-touch encouragement. That's why we recommend it right now as at least once a week. And when there is a crisis in the environment, they are far more amenable to change than when things are going according to plan. And I just saw on the news somewhere Rahm Emanuel, who was at the time Obama's chief of staff, saying we can't let a good crisis go to waste. And of course, what he was referring to is a crisis, an opportunity to gain more power and push their agenda forward. But the idea is the same. It's a crisis. One of the reasons why you can get things done in a crisis is people are more amenable to change. Your salespeople right now, this is the time to create some changes. You've been holding off for a long time. Your salespeople right now are more amenable to change than they will be when things are back to normal. So this is a great time to install some of those management best practices that they may have resisted before. Now, if and when they return to outside selling, you can extend the weekly conferences to monthly. But for now, the weekly touch can be very effective. Think of a weekly high-touch management relationship kind of meeting. Now, as a side note, just as a side note, you may want to check on their activity from time to time. They should be making their calls via a phone system, like Vonage or any of the phone systems out there, because you can check to see how many phone calls they made, and or a video platform like Zoom or Skype. Same thing. You want to be able to check on their activity. You'll want to have, and if you have to buy a system, then you want to have the capability to monitor their activity. Now, I realize, okay, that seems a little bit like Big Brother, but here's a voice of experience talking. Without exception, every single time that I have worked with a client who implemented some kind of activity monitoring system, the results were always eye-opening. Now, I'm being gentle. The results, for the most part, were incredibly disappointing. And when I say that, I mean when you saw where the salespeople were going, what they were doing, and so on, it was always disappointing. So you're changing people's behavior. You're going to bring them inside instead of outside, and you need to monitor that change, make sure it's going okay. So you ought to have some part of your system that allows you to monitor the activity. So if you look at salesman A and see he made 3 phone calls yesterday, that's a red flag, So that's number 2. Number 3, I want you to be a calm and rational model. All the people around you are looking for leadership from someone, and you are the most likely candidate. Your attitude, your demeanor, and your words will go a long way to reassuring people who are anxious and fearful. So there's 3 things to do right now. Now, second part of this, I want you to gear up for the inevitable opportunity that will come. Now, I'm not a futurist, and I make no claim to having any special insight, but I have been through this a number of times, and I'm a guy who thinks deeply about things. It's what people pay me to do. So I'm pretty certain that, number 1, this will end. Number 2, things will be different on the other side of it, but they will probably not be transformationally different. In other words, we won't find ourselves embracing socialism, not this time anyway. So things will be different, but not transformationally so. The fundamentals of our economy and society will click in. And when it ends, some companies in your industry will be worse for the experience and a few will be better. And the last thing that I'm pretty certain of is that demand will be pent up and will be ready to increase it disproportionately. So when this ends, you need to be prepared for a spike in demand. So this is the perfect time to make some long overdue structural changes to the way sales is done in your organization. Remember, people are much more amenable to change when they are in the middle of a crisis than when things are going along smoothly. So you'll be able to implement some changes that may have been met with resistance at a different time. So here's my very specific recommendations. Number 1, tighten up your sales system by restructuring your account priorities. Now, if you have not yet, and some of you may have done this already, then this is the perfect time to rearrange account responsibilities and priorities. It is likely that your sales force has been spending a lot of time with a number of accounts that just are not worth it. Now is the time to break that. Now is the time to move accounts from one person to the other if they're not producing. Now is the time to examine the potential of every account and to rank them into 3 categories, A, B, and C, by their potential. And after you have done that, now is the time to direct the sales force to spend more time with the A's and either less time with the C's or take the C's away and give them to a new inside salesperson. Now, as a result of having to do business remotely, some of your customers are going to like that approach. And on the other side, they decide that's how they want to do business. So in this time period, you will identify, hopefully, some salespeople who excel at selling remotely. So you put the two together, the ABC analysis of your customers, and identify a salesperson or two who really excels at selling remotely, and create an inside sales territory or two or three, which is defined by a list of phone numbers instead of geographical territories defined by addresses. Now is the time to rearrange all that so that salespeople, so your assets are being applied where they will get the biggest impact. Now, these changes, prioritizing your customers by their potential. By the way, make sure you get that. It's by their potential. It doesn't matter what they did last year. That's not the question. It's not about history. It's about the future. The question is, what could they do next year? That's potential. So this issue of arranging and prioritizing your customers and then directing the salespeople to spend more time with the A's and less with the others, that issue is the single biggest thing you can do. Nothing else has any impact that even close to that. And again, take it from me, I've done this dozens and dozens of times, and dozens and dozens and dozens and maybe hundreds of accounts, and it will be the single biggest thing you can do. Now, in the slow time brought on by this crisis, is the perfect time to do that. Now, we have a really step-by-step process for doing that. And you can, one of my books, Chapter 6 of 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople. You can get that anywhere. 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople. Take you through a step-by-step process from a salesperson's perspective on how to create ABC customers and categories. You really go get the book. It's $10 or something, and read that chapter. Now, if you want some more help, give me a call. We have some other resources to help you do that. But this is the single biggest thing you can do to prepare for the bump in business that you're going to see just down the road. So that's number one. Number two, prune your sales force. I know, that's harsh. I know it. And, I always get a little queasy talking about it. No one likes to let someone go. I understand. It's often emotionally draining, guilt-inducing event. But you're a manager, and I'm sorry, it comes with the territory. The health and well-being of the enterprise ensures the financial and emotional security for all the employees, not just a few who are marginal. And frankly, it's likely that some of your salespeople are marginal performers. For the health of the company, you need to prune the marginal performers so that the entire organization can reach its potential. It's like a grapevine. New growth won't happen until you prune the old and the dead and the withering. Your marginal performers drag the whole enterprise down. You cannot afford to allow that to happen. The crisis we are experiencing right now will make their lack of competency and performance even more visible and painful. Now is the time to make those changes you've been thinking about. Prune your sales force. That's number two. Number three, improve the competency of your sales team. Now, one of the things I've always liked about sales is this: you're never as good as you can be. Every one of your salespeople could be better. Now is the time to invest in them and take their performance and their competency and their skills up a level. My personal experience indicates that only about 20% of B2B salespeople have ever been exposed to any formal sales training, and only about 5% have ever been taught the best practices of their profession. In other words, it's not just here's how you sell, it's here's how you sell better. A little bit of education can have a huge payback just down the road. Bring them to a higher level of performance now. When the time is available, they have time. They're amenable to change. Now is the time to instill some of these practices and competencies that will get them to sell better. And of course, that's the work that I do primarily these days. We have something we call the Kahle B2B selling system that does that. I mean, our niche is we don't. Lots of people can teach you to sell. We teach you how to sell better, and that's the program will get you to sell better. So now is the time to invest in your sales team. One more thing I want you to do right now for the future, and that is take a hard look at your sales compensation plan. Now, if you make the changes that I recommended above, then it's entirely possible that your salespeople will be doing their job somewhat differently after the crisis. What you expect of them may also change. So, it's time to take a hard look at your sales compensation plan and consider revising it to meet the new scenarios and conditions. Again, from my personal experience, most sales compensation plans are vestiges of years gone by. They're designed to incentivize behavior that just is no longer at the top of your list for what you expect from a salesperson. The reason why most companies have the sales compensation plan they have is, well, they have it. In other words, it was designed years ago and it's a vestige. It just continues on and nobody has looked at it strategically in a long time. Now is the time to look at it strategically. If you restructure your account priorities, if you prune your sales force, if you improve their competencies, if you revise your sales compensation plan, you will be prepared to increase market share and dramatically improve sales on the other side of this crisis. Okay, now, by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. This is the kind of work we've been doing for 30 years. If you need help, give me a call. All right? Or email me, info@davekahle.com. All right, that's it. We're done. Bye-bye.